One day, two girls decided to embark on a simple adventure atop an abandoned tower in the middle of the desert, but just a few hours later, this adventure would turn into one of the most terrifying survival nightmares. Becky was trying to escape the trauma of her husband's death, who had fallen before her eyes while climbing a mountain a year earlier. Since that day, her life had changed completely. She had become isolated, psychologically devastated, and addicted to alcohol. But her friend Hunter believed that the only way to heal her was to confront her fear again. So she suggested something crazy: climbing a 600-meter-tall, abandoned television tower in the middle of the desert, and then scattering her husband's ashes at the top. At first, Becky refused outright, but after much hesitation, she finally agreed, unaware that this decision would push them both to the brink of death. The next morning, the two girls arrived at the tower. From the first moment, the place seemed terrifying. The tower was old, abandoned, and the metal ladders were on the verge of collapse from rust. But despite this, they began their ascent. With every meter they climbed, the fear began to creep in more and more. They climbed to an unimaginable height, 600 meters above the ground. After a terrifying ascent, the two girls finally reached the summit. There, Becky scatters her husband's ashes into the air, as if trying to say goodbye one last time. But as they prepare to descend, something truly terrifying happens. In just one moment, the entire trip turns into a disaster. The iron ladder collapses violently, and the metal pieces fall hundreds of meters to the ground, while Becky and Hunter cling to the tower with great difficulty. Fortunately for them, they are able to reach a small platform at the top of the tower, but the problem? The rest of the ladder was too far away from them. That is, going down became impossible. Now, the two girls are stuck on top of a 600-meter-high tower, without enough food, without water, and without any means of communication. At first, Hunter tries to calm the situation. She says maintenance crews or police would surely notice the staircase collapsing. But hours pass, and no one comes. Becky tries to use her phone, but there's no signal. It appears that the huge communications dish under the tower is disrupting the entire network. Here Hunter has a very dangerous idea. She takes off her shoes, places the phone inside, and then throws it away from the tower in hopes that it will pick up the signal and send a distress message. For a few seconds, they think the plan has succeeded, but the shoe hits the ground with tremendous force, and the phone completely shatters. And here the terrifying truth begins to emerge. No one knows where they are, and no one will come to save them. As time passes, the hot sun begins to horribly drain their energy. The heat is harsh, and the water is almost running out. Then suddenly, the girls notice an RV near the tower. There appeared to be two men below. They started screaming with all their might, and waved anything that could attract attention. But the distance was enormous. No one heard them. As night fell, Hunter found a flashlight gun inside a small emergency box. The signal shoots straight into the sky, and indeed, the two men notice the red light. And in that moment, Becky finally feels hope. But just minutes later, they discover something shocking. The two men didn't come to rescue them. Instead, they broke into Hunter's car, stole it, and drove off. Now, they have almost no hope left. As exhaustion and fear intensify, tensions begin to rise between the two friends. During the night, Becky notices a strange tattoo on Hunter's foot, 143, the same symbol her late husband, Dan, used to tell her, "I love you." Becky freezes. Then Hunter confesses the truth she's been hiding all this time. She's been having an affair with Dan for 4 months before his death. At that moment, Becky is completely devastated. She hasn't just lost her husband, she's been betrayed by the two people closest to her. But despite everything, they don't have time to argue. Death is closer than ever. The next morning, Hunter decides to risk her life to save them. The bag of food and water and the small drone have landed on the communications dish at the bottom of the tower. It's too far out of reach. Therefore, Hunter begins to descend very cautiously over the dilapidated metal structure, and every movement she makes could cause her to fall directly to her death. As Hunter slowly descended the corroded metal structure, the tower was rocked by a fierce wind. Any wrong move would mean a fall from a height sufficient to shatter a person into pieces. Despite her fear, she finally reached the bag. But as she tried to climb back down, her foot suddenly slipped. In a terrifying moment, she nearly plummeted into thin air. She clung to the safety tether at the last second. She began screaming in terror as Becky desperately tried to pull her up with all her remaining strength. The problem was that Becky herself was completely exhausted, thirsty, hungry, and utterly drained. But after a harrowing struggle, she finally managed to pull Hunter and the bag up. Although Hunter's hand was badly injured, the two girls regained a glimmer of hope. Inside the bag, they found a little water and, more importantly, the small drone. Becky had one last idea. She used the red warning light at the top of the tower to briefly charge the drone's battery. Then she wrote a distress message and attached it to the drone. The plan was simple: send the drone to a nearby restaurant several kilometers away, hoping someone would spot it. For the first time in hours, the two girls felt that survival was truly possible. The plane soared into the dark sky, slowly crossing the desert. Everything was going perfectly, until the worst happened. A speeding truck came speeding along the road, and crashed directly into the plane. In a split second, it was completely destroyed and plummeted to the ground. Their last hope vanished. After that, Becky's mental and physical condition gradually deteriorates. Hunger, thirst, and heat have left her nearly unconscious. At night, she begins to hallucinate and see things that aren't real. But amidst this collapse, she notices something very strange. When she asks Hunter for her shoes, he doesn't answer. Suddenly, Becky begins to remember what happened the previous day in detail. Then she discovers the terrifying truth. Hunter didn't survive at all. When she slipped while trying to retrieve the bag, she fell and died instantly. Her body was stuck on top of the communications dish at the bottom of the tower. All the conversations that took place between them afterward were just hallucinations in Becky's mind caused by shock and thirst. At that moment, Becky realizes she is completely alone, and that if she doesn't do something now, she will die on that tower and no one will ever know where she is. The next morning, she wakes up in excruciating pain. A huge vulture has been pecking at her injured leg while she slept. She engages in a fierce struggle with it and finally manages to kill it. Driven by hunger, she is forced to eat his flesh to survive. Then, gathering her last remaining strength, she begins descending towards the communications dish where Hunter's body lies. She types a final message to her father on the phone, a very short message, telling him she loves him and asking him to send help. But the problem is, if the phone falls, it will shatter like before. So she does something shocking. She places the phone inside Hunter's shoe and pushes it into the open wound on her body to protect it from impact. Then, she throws the entire body off the top of the tower. The body falls from a great height in the middle of the desert, and below, the body hits the ground with a violent impact. But this time, something was different. Hunter's body absorbed most of the force of the impact, and the phone remained intact. Just moments later, the message was successfully sent. Meanwhile, Becky's father sat alone in his house, devastated by his daughter's absence since Dan's death. Suddenly, a strange message arrived from Becky's number. When he opened it, he froze in shock. His daughter was trapped atop an abandoned tower in the middle of the desert, on the verge of death. At that very moment, he immediately called emergency services. Rescue vehicles began speeding toward the location. Up on the tower, Becky had reached the point of complete exhaustion. Her body could no longer endure. Thirst had ravaged her, and the scorching sun had left her barely able to open her eyes. She lay on the metal platform, waiting for death at any moment. After hours of waiting and fear, the rescue teams finally reached the tower and managed to rescue Becky. As soon as she's on the ground, her father arrives to find his daughter alive after the nightmare she endured. He runs to her and hugs her tightly as she breaks down in tears, overwhelmed by everything she's been through. She lost her friend and nearly lost her own life, but she finally survived and returned to Earth unharmed. She's also finally able to confront the pain she's been running from since Dan's death, and begin a new chapter in her life. And that's the end of the film. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in a new summary.